Hey, folks, and welcome in to the nerdiest video you're going to see today. My name is Dr. Luke Hobson. I'm an instructional designer for MIT. I'm also a blogger, a podcaster, and the founder of Instructional Design Institute. My purpose is to help you make the online learning experience come alive for you and for your students. In today's video, we're talking all about working with SMEs, but not just working with them. How do you help them with the onboarding process, transitioning, and really just understanding what the heck it is that we do as instructional designers and how their involvement is going to make this course design process, the program, degree, whatever you're working together on towards, going to make this the very best possible experience it can absolutely be. Now, this video topic came up the other day from a conversation I was having with a friend of mine who she is a wonderful and phenomenal instructional designer, but she was telling me about how she always has this problem when it comes to working with SMEs. Is at the very beginning, it always seems to be just kind of a bit awkward. They're not really sure what it is that instructional designers do. You're kind of feeling each other out here just to see how you're going to work together. You're learning more about one another. It's almost like you were set up on a blind date and now you're working with this person in order to create a type of a brand new online course, training, program, or whatever it is. So naturally, it can be kind of weird. So, what is it that I do in order to get rid of this awkward conversation? And how do I really go from here to actually taking leaps and bounds forwards in order for us to really start this course design process on the right foot? And I was having this talk with her and I showed her a bit more about what it is that I do and some of my strategies. And she was telling me, she was this like, if I had known this before, this would have saved me hours upon hours of struggling of working with SMEs. So that's what I'm going to show you today. My tips, my tricks, and what it is that I really do. Now, whether you are in corporate instructional design, maybe you work at a university or a school, this all applies to anybody. It doesn't matter. I've designed courses before with folks who are actually working at manufacturing plants and they've been there for 30, 40, 50 years and they had never once even thought about their knowledge actually becoming an online course. Now, on the flip side, I have also worked with professors who have been teaching at one school for, twice as long as I've actually been alive, and they've never done online learning before. So that was an entirely new process for them in order to actually see how everything is going to come together. So, a very long way of saying whether you're corporate, higher ed, nonprofit, whatever entity that you actually are working with, it doesn't matter. All of these things still apply. So let's get started. I first want to go back to the basics, the fundamentals. Who are we as instructional designers? I would say that we can categorize what it is that we really do into three specific topics. The first is that we design online learning experiences. We know how people learn, and we can use this knowledge in order to really create these environments that are active and engaging and fun and entertaining, yet informative at the same time, and make everything all come together. We also manage projects, multiple projects at the same time. We wear so many hats as IDs. It doesn't matter where we are or what organization, whatever it is, you are always managing so many different projects and talking to all these different stakeholders, whether it is a SME, your supervisor, marketing, accounting, customer support, advising, whoever it is, you are always managing these projects and making sure that everyone's in the know-how about what it is, what's going on, and the progress and development of the online course. But then finally, and that's what we're getting to for this video, is that you're managing relationships. You need to know as an instructional designer how you're working with the SME. And really, there are three things that I want to say to this is that you need to know how to influence, how to negotiate, and how to persuade. If you are always thinking about the learning experience in the back of your mind, and that is the number one top priority that you are trying to work on, well, maybe the SME has a different perspective of what the students really should be learning about. So how do you meet them in in the middle? How do you keep first and foremost what the heck students are going to be going through in order for them to actually obtain these brand new skills without throwing everything in the kitchen sink at them, which sometimes that does happen. And you need to be able to reel everyone back in here and make sure that you're really focusing on the priority of what the student is going to be going through. So, managing these relationships are key. I will also say, too, is that if you are a new instructional designer, one of the number one fears I keep on hearing about is that folks think that they need to know literally everything about the course content in order to work with the SME. That is simply not true. A SME, if you don't know what that is, by the way, I probably should have said that earlier, is a subject matter expert, someone who has expertise in one specific field, and you're going to work with this person in order to bring your skill set, your knowledge to the table, combine that, and then you're going to have something absolutely amazing. So you are not expected to do a job with both the ID and the SME. That's not really realistic. So just wanted to let you know that right away, just in case if you are thinking about that and wondering how you go about doing these things, that's really and shouldn't be, I should say, sometimes it is the case, should not be the case though. So, what I want to start talking with you first about too is conducting research. Now, what do I mean by this? As soon as I am assigned to work on a brand new course or a program degree, whatever it is, of working with a SME, the very first thing that I want to be able to know about is more of who is this SME? What are they passionate about? What do they love? What are things that they teach about? What do they know? All of these different things are really going to help you when it comes to developing this relationship and starting it off on the right foot. So think about the SME's background, their education. What have they written about recently for articles or blogs or papers? Have they done workshops? Have they done YouTube videos? What can you find about this person on Google? Chances are, and then no matter the industry too, by the way, folks, this could be someone who has been in a corporate organization and they have done amazing things with trainings and workforce development and learning and development. So you can find plenty of things too about folks' accomplishments if this does not have to be just solely about academia and higher ed. But the first thing that I do besides Google is that I really love to use LinkedIn. LinkedIn will show you all of those things from their websites, from the descriptions about what they've done, where they've worked, their education, their trainings or skills. All of those things are usually there. So I absolutely love LinkedIn. And LinkedIn will also show you, too, what courses they have taught or what trainings they have taught. Really important information, which is always good to know. Now, to give you an example of this, because before I didn't do this strategy. Before I was just going in and not really knowing too much and just saying, like, hey, I'm Luke, I'm an ID. Let's kind of figure this out. Not the best way to start a partnership with someone who doesn't even know what the heck it is that instructional designers do. So, what I started to do, I've learned from my mistakes, is that when I'm working with a SME, the very first thing that I do is that I try to conduct this research. So, one story about this is that when I was assigned to work with a professor in a business strategies course, that is, of course, extremely broad and vague. It can go into several different directions. I had no idea where we're going to be going with this. What I did is I went over to LinkedIn. I found his LinkedIn profile, which then led me to his blog and his personal website. And he talked all about some of the recent articles that he made on strategy. And I found them and I read all of them. And they were not short, but I wanted to be able to read as much as I possibly could about his passions because he just produced 3 brand new articles about strategy over that last year. So I read all of these things. And what ended up happening is that I learned his terminology, his perspective on strategy, his mindset on strategy. Now, what ended up happening is that when I finally did meet this SME and we had our introduction call, I could tell that he was already thinking about how do I teach this person more about strategy and what I mean by this. And instead, I went into this conversation saying, like, hey, I already know about those things. And he was like, you do? I'm like, yeah, I read all of your articles. It's like, You did? Like, yeah, I care. Like, I want us to be able to start off on the right foot. So that just really showed him that I actually cared about this process. I was investing my time and energy already into this in the very beginning. And that way, what ended up happening is that we skipped that entire awkward process where like we don't know each other or what it is that we do or whatever. That was totally skipped. And we just right into thinking all about learning experience and how do we make this course on strategy the very best it possibly could be. And if you're able to do this, it is going to do the exact same thing of saving you so much time and headaches and skipping that awkward moment. So, speaking about introductions, what is it that I actually say when I first meet someone? This script that you were seeing in front of you, which I've shared before on the podcast and the blog and on a few other YouTube videos, this is literally what I say to my SMEs every single time. When I introduce myself, I say that I understand how people learn online. Using this knowledge, I'll work with you in order to create a real meaningful learning experience, something that we can be proud of, something that's going to be engaging and interactive and amazing. And together, we're going to be designing and developing curriculums, resources, and materials that, of course, are going to link and align to course outcomes, to competencies, and to skills. Please feel free to take this, edit this, use this as much as you want. I have found over the years that this is going to be the thing that I say that folks really connect with, and they understand after I say all these things what it is that I actually do and why I am here to provide value and showcase really what instructional design is all about. Now, by doing this too and having this conversation, from there, I then try to assess more about their understanding of what it is that instructional designers actually do. And I like to start this conversation by just simply asking, have you worked with an instructional designer before? If yes, please tell me more about how you work together and how it went. Why this is important is that as you find out going from job to job, is that different universities, different organizations have their own ways when it comes to working with SMEs. Now, they may think that they do it one way, but then perhaps the project goes a different way and there's more of a realistic thing that actually happens. To give you an example, it is not uncommon to hear about the fact that the SME might try to totally run the show. They have the power when it comes to the political game of the organization. So basically, this becomes their course, it's their way or the highway. And then essentially, the idea is this they're trying to pick up the pieces and make it all come together. Now, it's entirely possible, but it's literally the opposite. The ID is the one who is running the show. The professor is just there. And by professor, I mean SME, faculty member, instructor, trainer, whatever it is. I use those terms interchangeably, by the way. But the ID is running the show, and the professor basically just supplies the videos when they can because they're so busy. They don't have time to do anything. So they just know that if they supply their videos and their articles, the ID can take it and run with it. Now, what you want, though, is to meet in the middle. You want to make that equal partnership, work together, both feel proud of your accomplishments, because that's what's really going to get the students and the learners the very best bang for their buck. Now, going from there, I then talk and ask more about, have you designed an online course before? If yes, how was that design process for you? Because just like with my last story, there are different things that folks are going to be able to go through. And it might be different from your perspective or what it is that the design process actually entails. Perhaps you're working with somebody who did use ADDIE, Agile, SAM, backwards design. There are a number of different ways that we can, of course, assess knowledge and create these meaningful learning experiences. And the SME may have gone through one iteration and now we're going to be going through something else. So it's just really good for them to just have this type of a overall understanding of what it is that they're actually in for. And then that for you as the ID is really going to help to paint the picture of currently assessing where the SME is, and then what do you need to do in order to make them feel more comfortable with this entire process, with everything they're about to be going through. Now, the first thing that I do that a lot of people don't do, and I still don't know why, but this is my first tip, is to demo a course. So if you're building a course together, why not offer to give them a demo, a presentation, talk more about it? It's the very first thing that I do when working with SMEs, besides the whole, of course, the introductions and everything else. But then I say, hey, do you actually want to see an example of a course? I never have I had it where someone says, no, I'm good. Every single person's like, yeah, why don't you show me a course? Now, the way that I think about that is imagine if you're going to be buying a car. What's the first thing that you do? Well, when you go to the dealership, you park your old car, you then go and try to find the new car that you want to buy. You look at it, you find the right color, does it have the right features? And then you go and find a salesperson and talk about the paperwork, negotiating, and then you eventually drive away with the new car. Now, hypothetically speaking, imagine if the process was that you went to a car dealership, you didn't look at a single car, you eventually find a salesperson, then start negotiating, go through the paperwork, and then eventually you go and see the car, and then you realize, hey, that's not the thing I actually want. It's kind of like that. Why not show them the final product from the very beginning and let them understand what the heck it is that an online course or a training or a program actually means in this sense, in this organization, right here and right now? There are going to be four main benefits that come from this. The first is that it's creating a vision. You're allowing the SME to really see exactly where their hard work, where their dedication is actually going to go towards. Is it going to be writing articles and blogs and things you're going to use? Is it going to be video and screen time? Is it going to be podcasts? Is whatever it's going to be, they can actually see more about just what it is the real vision is, and then they can see themselves within the course. Now, this will obviously create ownership of the content. This doesn't just become something else where it's just like, oh, this is Luke's course. It's like, no, 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 this is actually our course together. Like, my name is on this, my bio is in the course. You can see my videos, my readings. It's going to create something that makes them much more passionate about it, because now they're not just kind of giving away everything. Now they're actually far more involved, and they can see themselves truly being within the course. And what is this going to do? Obviously, it's going to build excitement. You probably have a SME who is like you, juggling many, many projects. And now this is just another thing they have to do on top of all of that. But this is going to build excitement, momentum. It's going to want to make them participate more, and then really be able to look forward to hearing about next steps and how everything is going to come together. And then finally, last but absolutely not least, this makes it realistic. It makes a realistic goal. So when you're talking to a SME for the first time saying, hey, we're going to be designing this online course. Well, what the heck is an online course? Is it 8 weeks? Is it 16? Is it 24 weeks? Where exactly am I going to be involved in this process? What are we going to do? You're basically answering all their questions by saying like, hey, this is a sample of a course. As you can see from this past example, this is what Professor XYZ ended up doing. There are her videos, there's her readings, and we were involved in making these questions together, and so on and so forth. Overall, it just creates a real and a just a realistic goal of what it's going to look like at the end of the day. Now, to give you an example of demoing a course and just to show you that I actually practice what I preach, I just did this the other day with Instructional Design Institute. If you don't know what the Institute is, this is a professional development resource for instructional designers in higher education. I have taken everything I know about ID and I try to put it all together for you within one institute, just so that that way you can learn from obviously my past mistakes and what it is that I do now. So I love being able to share with folks inside of the Institute, things that I know about and my perspectives. But as an educator, I know the importance of bringing in more perspectives. So I asked a few friends of mine who are instructional designers and instructors, and I just asked them about, hey, would you want to be able to build your own courses within here so that way it's not just me babbling on the entire time? And they said yes. So what I ended up doing? Well, I demoed the courses for them. I showed them some presentations and walked them through what it is that my courses actually look like when I design them, because they didn't use that same platform that I've used before. I use a platform called Kajabi, and none of them have ever heard about that platform. But why I use that platform in particular and why I want to show them is that, for one, it just looks really good. As you can see, it's clean, it's sleek. There is a video in the middle, and I was was telling them about how whenever you record your videos, that's going to be inside of there. Down below, which you actually can't see because it's a screenshot, so I didn't want to make this huge for you. I want you to be able to still read some of the font. Is that down below there is a reading. I take the live transcript from the video and I embed it down below to essentially make it a reading so that way, if you don't want to watch the video and you just want to go through and read down below, hey, you can absolutely do that too. On the right hand side, it shows the navigation. There are the videos, but then as you're going to see on the third bullet point down, there's something that is called a put into practice question. Because, and this is why I picked Kajabi in the first place, is that it does have assessment tools, which every single other type of platform doesn't seem to do for some reason. They have videos, they have readings, they have quizzes, and they have multiple choice. But there's nothing for an open response assessment, which for my learning experiences that I create, those are vital. I want folks to be able to practice in a safe space of talking about the situation, talking about the scenario, and just having them to think back more about their experiences, the topics, and how they all align together. And for all the instructors that I showed this courses for, they were like, we had no idea. Like we didn't know that that was a thing inside of here. We always thought it had to be a typical LMS, like a Brightspace, Canvas, Moodle, Blackboard. There's thousands of them at this point. So that was just really important to show them because now they're seeing a realistic picture of, okay, there are videos, there are quizzes, there are practices, there are things that we can work on together for assessment items. But also I told them too about how there is the Meet Your Instructor page. There's going to be your bio, your picture, your accreditations, your accomplishments, everything that you have done is all going to be listed in there for you too. And that way it's going to be your course. You own this. So building that credibility with your SME, which for me, this is like super meta to have a SME being an ID and I'm an ID and we're working together. Kind of really cool, not going to lie. But that was a way for them to see exactly what is they're about to be embarking on and what was really in store for them if they said, yes, I want to actually design a course with you. Now, for the elements of online courses, those are things too. I just talked about them briefly, but wanted to expand upon them a bit more. Is that because many SMEs come in here, if they've already designed a online course, they may design a course that was just simply something like videos, multiple choice questions, perhaps an essay, and like that was it. There has been this common misperception for years and years and years that face-to-face is far superior compared to online learning. Now, in that sense, when online learning is something that doesn't involve the students in any way, shape, or form, and it's incredibly boring, yeah, then of course face-to-face is better. But I would argue that if you can make something even more enticing, more engaging, more relevant for them, and they can actually see what it is that they're going to be going through and how it applies to the real world, then I'm pretty sure that online learning has a fair fighting chance. So when you're talking about the elements of the courses, I tell SMEs that yes, there are readings, yes, there are videos, but there are practice questions because I want students to be able to practice somewhere in a safe space and not just go out and try something for the very first time in the real world. I want them to be able to try it out here first and learn from the failures, learn from the feedback, and then they can grow. I want them to think about reflections, something that they have gone through currently right now in their job, or perhaps it's something they can reflect about from the past, a past experience, or perhaps they're thinking about something in the future and how they can apply the lessons they just learned into these different moments of time. There are summative assessments where you're taking everything from the multiple weeks and putting it together like a final project. There are peer-reviewed assignments because I want folks to be able to look at each other's work and see from a peer-to-peer perspective what are their peers going through, because they're going to relate to that much more compared to just always hearing from an instructor. And there are many ways. I won't just keep on going down the list because there's so many different ways you can do different elements of learning in online courses. But when I start talking about these things, that's when SMEs are like, oh, this isn't normal. Like we are really going to be making something meaningful here. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the point. So explain about these things because none of these things are only relevant to Kajabi or to, every platform has things of these nature. So you can do this as an ID. You can certainly go through far more in depth about all of these different types of elements. Now let's talk about a couple of different types of important topics that what I just kind of went through. So the first thing is that I'm redefining in the mind of a SME what online courses actually are. Now, by doing this, you are going to be dispelling myths. So, I talked about how the entire myths of just only having readings and multiple choice questions and essays, they're far more in depth into things. This also dispels myths too about the entire process of what it is the students are going to be going through, perhaps what they are going to be going through as a SME with working with you together. Now that they have seen a final project, a final course, a demo, and they have witnessed and seen all the great things you can actually accomplish. The other thing, too, that every SME has always asked me about is time. How much time are you expecting of me? What we're going to be going through. And I always say that there is going to be, let's say, if you have, and this certainly changes completely depending upon what course it is and what level, and is it master's, is it, all these different things. But if you're going to be designing a course that, let's say, is like 3 to 5 hours in length, well, then it's going to be common to have something like requesting an hour of video time for them. And then I say that you need to be able to break these things down. And of course, we can do this for you with editing and with some movie magic here. But I want to be able to provide these smaller chunks of information, and that way we can build things around them. And that's how videos are going to be working here. Because for many SMEs, they come into thinking like, well, if the course is going to be 10 hours a week, then does that mean that it's 5 hours of me on video or 5 hours of me writing problems or whatever it is? They always seem to think that they're doing a ton more, when in reality, I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, I'm here for you. Like there's a reason why I'm working on this project with you, is that way you're not having to do all this by yourself, and that there's someone else alongside you to be able to help guide you through this process. So by guiding them through this process, this is then where I start with, is that I always talk going to the course outline. Now, you may have this as a number of different things. The terminology changes, but what I'm saying still remains the same. You might call this a project scope, a blueprint, a course outline, whatever it is. Essentially, what is your main document that is going to be what guides you for going forwards with this course design process? So at this point in time, you've done your pleasantries, you've done your homework, you've done your introductions, you've shown them a course. You then say, hey, let's look at this main document that's going to then tell us more about what it is that we are actually designing. Now, chances are your SME may have already done a significant amount of this work, and that's how the course idea populated in the first place, is that they had a training or a course that whoever dictates in your world that this is going to be a good idea to take this and to convert this into an online learning type of a platform, then so be it. It's kind of an easy change to do. Perhaps you're doing this from scratch and you're sitting together and trying to figure out all these different things. Whatever it is, this is what this type of a main document has, is that it has the description, it has the course outcomes, it has, in some sense, defining who the students are, so calling that a student profile, or this is essentially the target audience, who is the course being made for, who is it going to serve, what audience is that. Then you're talking about the skills and being able to identify the skills gap of how this course is going to be able to impact this, and to be able to further develop and to build and hone these skills. Then a timeline. When exactly are they expected to be able to submit their work, have you review it, give feedback to that one, then go back to the drawing board, come together again, and so on and so forth. And then finally, just having this overall type of an outline per week, trying to just break this down as much as you can into a modular level, because that way it's going to help the SME understand what exactly you are talking about and when and why and how it all comes together. So from this outline, I will typically then go into backwards design and talking more about my model of how I work and develop these types of online courses. Now, I don't want to freak you out here, because perhaps you were not using backwards design and you use something else. That's absolutely a-okay. Whatever you're trying to do, think about it like this way. Instructional designers, we are problem solvers. How do you solve the problem and then be able to successfully say, hey, we did it, we designed a course around it, and now this learning experience is actually going to make these students or these people successful in what it is we're trying to accomplish? super simplistic way of talking about instructional design. But from this stance, I'll just keep on running here with backwards design. So I first talk about identifying the desired results. At the end of the day, what outcomes are students supposed to be able to achieve once they have actually taken this course? How do we then determine, as far as for what is acceptable levels of evidence that students actually did do what we were asking them to do? And then we can then say that they have been able to achieve these types of learning outcomes with the right levels of efficiency. And then finally, then how do we take this and then eventually wrap it all up and plan the learning experience around this? Now, for going forward with this, I will then typically show a type of a template just to kind of help out, because we know that visuals will help out in the sense that they've never done some form of an instructional design model before, where I show them in this type of a 4-column approach that we do take your course outcome. We then try to figure out how we're assessing this knowledge. We then build the learning and practice activities around it, all the things that I mentioned about before, and then how we able to deliver this course content. And by doing this, this is actually going to make a entire online learning experience. Now, the thing is with this is that sometimes the SME at this point in time, they've actually designed an online course before, so they understood literally everything I just said. Other times they have never done this before, and that becomes a very long conversation of going through everything, because chances are, what I keep on finding from my experience, is that they'll come into this course design process with their lectures already in their head, and then they're just thinking the entire time about their lectures and how do they all fit together. So if that is the case, then this is the way to approach this, is that if they already have their lectures, those are essentially now going to become your videos. So you can break things down by showcasing the main course outcome. You can talk about the module or the week of wherever this is going to be taking place. And then you can say the actual title of the video, and then who is filming the video. And then, of course, you can leave any comments about this. I keep on finding that many professors and faculty members and instructors, they already have this coming into things. So if that's what they're thinking about, that if they have their entire 3-hour course, or sorry, their 3-hour lecture, I should say, for a week, and they want to be able to break it down because they know from years of experience and from working with students is that they're very effective lectures. Well, great. Let's build off of those and let's take them and essentially let's make them even better and find a new way to put them into this online learning model. So I'll take these videos, and this is what I do, is that I then put it into a course map. Now, what is a course map? Essentially, the course map is that this is going to be our map that shows every single week, every single section of a course and how it aligns across the board. And this is going to be like your rough design before you actually take everything and then import it over into your learning management system. So this is one of the types of courses I've designed before. Everything that you just saw on that last screen was talking about a course that was all about networking, which is awesome. It was a phenomenal course. What I did is that I took the main outcome, and I'm sorry if this font is really small, by the way. I just wanted you to be able to see a little snippet of this. But I took the main outcome for the week. I then took apart the entire module. So for my module, I broke those down into segments, and then like 3 segments equaled a module or equaled a week. So we had that segment right there. And then I took his videos of what he wanted to do, and then I put it into Google Sheets. Yeah, really simple here, folks. I put it into Google Sheets, and then I was just like, okay, we have these videos. They're eventually going to align into what we're talking about for the outcome of the week. Well, this is how I, as an instructional designer, would assess this knowledge. And I built this type of learning experience around it. So you do have the reading. That's an introductory material. We're applying prior knowledge from what we were just talking about last week and building upon it. And this is then getting them ready to transition into then watching this video. From the video, there are 2 series. It makes sense to do this back to back. But then I want them to be able to have a practice question, practice about the topics they just learned about from those videos, and think about themselves in that scenario of the video and practice into a safe space. From there, it goes into another video. From there, we're now going much more in depth. So now we're practicing once again on another question, but then following that is going to be one that's built all around a case study just to tie it all in together. And by showing this, where you're literally giving them a map of what the course is going to look like, this has always, in my opinion, worked as far as for being able to say, like, oh, that's where my videos go. Oh, that's where the reading is going to go. And like, oh, okay, the project comes over here. And this is going to allow them in Google Sheets to comment on it. They can move it around. I would always advise you to save a type of a main file, a master file, whatever you want to call it, that's yours. And that way they don't touch that one just in case if you need to go back to that one. So always make a copy, just never think from past experiences. But then allow them to play around with this and see exactly how it all comes into play. And then by doing this, eventually you'll have a very large course map, but they can clearly see where their purposes are for how they're going to be recording these videos, how they align, what they're going to do. It talks about eventually the filming schedule, because then they can say, like, okay, let's do week 2 this week and let's go through this one. So then as you're starting to edit the videos, or perhaps there's a team doing this for you, editing the videos, you can slowly start to piecemeal it together one by one and then actually build the real course around all these things as everything is progressing. And that, my friends, has always worked for me. And I would highly, highly advise you to do something along these lines. Well, that was a lot of information within, I don't even know how long that was. That was a long time, not going to lie. So that's everything that I've learned about when it comes to working with SMEs and trying to help them with onboarding with this transition process, understanding more it is about instructional design, who you are, and what it is that you do. Speaking of which, if you like this video and you want to learn more about myself, I have my own podcast where I interview amazing instructional designers and other folks in online higher education. It is by far one of the nerdiest instructional design podcasts out there. So definitely go ahead and search for that one. You can also learn more about the Institute. I showed you a little bit about that one today. If you want to learn more about instructional design from me and from all my several past mistakes that I've learned from, I have built courses inside of here that cover things like designing podcasts for online courses, scenario-based learning for courses, universal design for learning, and many other things. I also host private online webinars too for the members, specifically within the Institute, just so that way, if you did want to be able to ask me more questions in real time and go through different things. I'm loving doing videos. This has been 2021 is going to be my year of doing videos. I'm always going to have the podcast because podcasting is the thing that I've loved for so long, but this has been a lot of fun for me. So if you do want to check out the Institute, go down below. You can check out the link within the description for the video, and there is a free trial. So sign up for the free trial, see if you like it. If you do, wonderful. If not for you, then that's okay too. No hard feelings. But folks, that is all I have for you today. Down below, comment on what was your favorite tip of this entire presentation and how are you going to use that in the next time you design an online course or program training or whatever it is when it comes to working with a SME. Thank you so much, though, once again, for actually listening to me babble on for these last however many minutes it has been. I have to go and edit out this video and find that out. But until next time, my friends, stay nerdy out there, and I'll talk to you later.